Imagine living in a house with thousands and thousands of dollars worth of treasure that you didn't know existed. Diamonds, sapphires, amethysts, pearls, paper, coins, all sitting right in front of you, but you didn't know it was there. This is what happened to us. It was the early 1950s when my husband's grandparents moved with their parents, my husband's great-grandparents, into a two-family mother-daughter style house on Long Island. It wasn't a huge house, it wasn't small, but it wasn't overly large, and they shared a space in the garage for storage of boxes. And through the years, those boxes built up and nobody ever cleaned them out. Then, in the early 70s, my in-laws moved into the home, and my husband's grandparents moved down to Florida. And they don't really, in our family, they leave things, oh, maybe you'll need them, we don't need them, and they just packed up and left. So here's these boxes that were in the back of the garage from my husband's great-grandparents, my husband's grandparents, and now he's living in the home with his parents and his uncle. So my husband grew up in the home. Everything was great. The boxes sort of just became the background of the garage. Instead of cleaning it out and having extra space, they just sort of left it because it was at this point very daunting. In 1990, I believe it was 1990, my in-laws sold the family house outside the family. We didn't want it. We had our own home, and there was nobody else that wanted it, so the house was sold. So this meant that everything in the house needed to be cleaned out, including the garage. So now it was from 1950, the stuff was being collected from 1950s to the 1990s. During the time that they sold the house, my mother-in-law became ill, and I became pregnant. And us being the only two, I have no sister-in-laws. While we had plenty of men, they didn't do much of the packing. It was basically us. So we were kind of short-handed when it came to this. And in 1990, my husband's parents sold the family home to somebody outside the family, which meant that the whole entire house needed to be packed up, cleaned out, and we had to leave the house in pristine, clean condition. The boxes were the last thing that we wanted to pack up. It was probably the hardest part of cleaning out the house because there was so many. There was about 30 full boxes. This is the first of 26 boxes. And this one's the size of a shoebox. This was a box found inside of a box of clothing, and we don't know who owned it. The earliest coin that we found in here, I believe, was 1970. And so this box, we know, has not been touched since 1970. Or thereabouts. They don't have anything older in there. And as I said, we don't know who owns this or did own it, and nobody that's alive today can identify it either. And we have a sapphire ring. And my husband believes this was his grandfather's. And it's not tarnished like silver, so this has to be platinum or maybe white gold. And it's got the two diamonds on the side. It's hard for me to show you the star on this one, but it does have the sapphire star. And then we had, this is a gold cameo. The cameo is loose on it, but I love cameos, and this was one of 3. 2 were in silver. And this is real silver because of the way we know that the way it's tarnished. And then another one. Here's a pearl amethyst and a 14 karat gold. It appears that this is a clasp. We can get it open, or I have gotten it open in the past. But now it's going to be, okay, here it goes. So this is a clasp of somebody's jewelry. It's pretty. And here's somebody's, I guess, wedding band. It's very tiny. My kids have really tiny fingers, and this was too small on them. And I think it's more because it's weirdly shaped. But there's 9 diamonds in there. I believe this was cut from another ring. Just by the way it looks like it was cut from maybe a ring that had diamonds going fully around, and they wanted to split it off into 2. And then we have some watches. There's one watch in here that I absolutely love. This is one of those automatic wind watches, and I think the technology came out like around the 1950s. I did try online to look this watch up through the company, and I could not find when this face was made. There was no pictures in Google of it. If anybody recognizes it, it happens to be a watch expert. What's weird about this watch is we have not fixed it. It has been sitting since 1970 at best. I mean, it's got to be in the box maybe since the 1970s, and it's still working. And you can see the little second hand is ticking away on it. Now of course, we have all the coin. And some of these are quite old. This one is 1890, but it's not the oldest one. I think this is 1881. I believe this might be the oldest one. There's so many of them. I didn't even count. 1885. So if you count up all of these that are really old, I have not investigated into them, but you have several $100s worth of silver alone in here. And you could see a lot of them were pure silver. Most of them, I think, were. Then, of course, we have all of this, the smaller coins. Some of these are not American money. Some of them are foreign. Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, 1969. So this was the first box. And as I said, we haven't had it evaluated yet, but this is only one out of 26 boxes, 8 of which we have not opened yet. In the next box, I discovered that somebody was an avid newspaper collector. And we found some pretty interesting, although not stored properly, newspapers. And you could see how yellow these are, and they smell really bad. I don't usually take them out of the plastic. And you can recognize this as JFK's funeral. We have the Life magazine from Lee Harvey Oswald. I realize a lot of people save these. These aren't rare, but they were a pretty cool find. It's something that we didn't know was sitting around in our garage. Elvis. And there he is in the casket. And what did they say? Elvis is still alive? I don't think so. And Life magazine. What year is this? November 1963. And this we have November 1977. Okay, you could see this is a pretty old case. If you run your fingers over it, you'll actually get splinters. And we found somebody's old button collection. So, for somebody who does scrapbooking, I have a large collection of antique buttons. Okay, I pulled this out before, out of the box that had the jewelry and the money, and I didn't show you what it was. It's a leather case. I don't think it's that anything special, but what I did find as collectibles is, of course, the cash. Now, some of this is foreign. I don't know why some of this has been saved. I have an idea why this was saved. And it's old, I know that. But it's one of those $2 bills that's cut irregularly. And I think this is from the 1930s. I did look it up a while ago by the serial number. But I can understand why it was kept. It's because it's printed oddly. The spacing on the sides are all wrong. And I looked up if money was printed like that, and apparently no. There's barely anything on the bottom, and there's all the spacing on top, and this should be up more. It doesn't line up with the back. So I could see why this was kept. And this is just some foreign money, probably from somebody's travels. They just threw it into the box. Not much of anything. But these I can understand why these were kept. This, during World War II, these were replacement money for when Japan invaded smaller countries, and that's the 5 peso one. But this one I thought was cute. This is the Japanese government 1 cent from Malaysia. And these are not rare. I looked them up online. They're just an oddity and a keepsake. And this was probably from when one of our past relatives were in World War II.